Probably very little introduction is needed of Ed Skilling today, because he's been with us since day one, off and on over the years, and we're always pleased to have him back with something new that he comes up with. Sometimes I wish I had the electronics genius that he has, because he is a genius and a gifted man in this field. He's always tinkering, figuring out something new, something that works, something that's really good. He's had many, many years of experience in these things, and today we want to welcome him here to show us his latest toys, tidbits, little goodies that he's come up with. I know you'll enjoy hearing Ed Skilling this afternoon, so put your hands together and take him apart real fast, please, and bring him on.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is 14th time. No, I haven't been here 14 times, but 14 years ago, in 1983 was the first time I came here, and really had a good time. I'm an inventor, electronics engineer. I have patents in electrochemistry, in hydraulics, and electronics. And I've been doing this practically all my life. I started when I was 10 years old, putting electricity in my body, building crystal sets. And we took a Model T spark coil and lined up a bunch of kids, and we stood in a big circle and had a wonderful time getting some high voltage energy into our bodies. So high voltage couldn't have hurt you, because I'm 78 years old now and I still have tremendous amount of energy. I have good health. I don't catch colds, I don't get diseases, and it may be I have good genes, but it also may be because I've been working in the field of electromedicine for many, many years. So that's where it comes from. I really got interested in electromedicine in 1960. I had been building pulse generators off and on in 1950. Also, I built all my own amateur radio gear. I was K6HXM in California for over 20 years. And I had been building some pulse generators and experimenting with them. Well, in 1960, my wife was injured in an automobile accident. She was in the hospital for 6 weeks in traction, had a broken pelvis, and they had her hooked on tranquilizers, sleeping pills, and nerve pills. And when she came home from the hospital after 6 weeks, she was on crutches and in pain and having a bad time. So I put together a little pulse generator, and within 4 days, I had her kicked off. She had kicked all the drugs and was pain-free. So that made me a real believer. I'd been studying some of the early pioneers like Dr. Albert Abrams, who was the father of all electromedicine, starting back in 1917. And there's a lot of literature and information on Dr. Albert Abrams. I imagine a lot of people here have heard of him. Yeah, he's also the father of radionics. That's another field I've spent a lot of time in. During my years of working in aerospace engineering and into the corporate picture, I had retired in '83 after 44 years. 25 of those years was in aerospace engineering. And I was a section head of experimental electronics in General Dynamics Corporation for 17 of those years, and some other companies. And I finally got out of the corporate structure that was Navy contracts and government contracts, went back into commercial work to develop products, and that's where I generated some patents. But the hobby was electromedicine, and I continued that hobby till I retired in 1983, in which I formed my own company. After I had made the first pulse generator that corrected my wife's problems, all my friends who had a problem, if he had a broken leg, I would give him a unit, and he put it on the leg and accelerated healing. I discovered a lot of wonderful benefits from these pulse generators. Well, I finally retired in '83 after all these corporate years, and formed my own company. Now, my good friend Bob Beck, it's his fault that I'm here today. because in 1983, I was building some pulse generators, and Bob found out about them and wanted to come by and get some of those little boxes. And he invited me to the Los Angeles Dowsers meeting, and I took some of these little boxes up there, and people just snapped them up, and it astounded me that they were so much interested in them. And then he invited me to come to the U.S. Psychotronics Association in Portland, Oregon, where I gave a talk on building TENS units, which is also a pulse generator. During those years, if you mentioned pulse generators to medical people, they'd say that's pure quackery. But they discovered in 1974, now they're called TENS units. So we were way ahead of them during that time. So it's all Bob Beck's fault that I'm here today. In 1983, I formed my own corporation called E.F. Skilling Incorporated, and for a year we started pumping out all these types of generators. In 1984, I couldn't keep up with the demand for them, so we started to move the corporation to Idaho, and I got my children involved in it. And they built all the units for me, and we would, in the summertime, like come to these conferences, and every year I would come, I'd have some new types of pulse generators or whatever. I've become very much interested in 1984 when I was given a sun lamp, which was a quartz tube, an ultraviolet quartz tube that was powered by radio frequency. It would have to be powered at 27.120 megahertz, which is called the ISM frequency, the scientific, industrial, and medical frequency that you can use radio frequencies on for producing gaseous tube technology. So I discovered immediately that I modified the generator in there. It was a 27.120, and I modulated that generator with some pulse frequencies, and discovered that in 5 minutes' time, anyone sitting in front of that, if they had the symptoms of a cold, a sore throat, a cold, runny nose, it would stop it immediately. And quite often, and later on, I'll tell you another story about that when I put it into a company that had quite a bit of illnesses in their technicians, and they'd come into my lab in the morning if they felt a sickness coming on. They'd sit in front of that lamp, was able to work all day with no problems. So in 1988, this company that we had of traveling around every summer doing seminars like this got pretty tiresome for me. I wanted to get back to doing research, so I gave the company to my daughter and her husband, who I had trained to build all of this equipment. And in 83 and by 88, they were well entrenched in, they knew how to run the business, and they knew how to go out and sell the products. So I gave it to them, and unfortunately, a year later, in October of 1989, they were raided by the Attorney General of the state of Idaho. They had 50 officers come in with local police and the sheriff and an FDA agent, and they shut my kids down. They come in with nothing but a search warrant. They confiscated all the equipment, moved it to Boise, Idaho, and locked their bank accounts so they couldn't do any business, and took off with only a search warrant. They never charged anything to the kids, and as a matter of fact, they never did anything. But there was a local naturopathic doctor who had been selling a lot of our equipment, and he put out a catalog, and they'd been watching them for some time because he had people coming in from all over the country. They were flying in, they brought motorhomes in. He had a big clinic in Twin Falls, Idaho, and people would drive their motorhomes in and trailers, and I walked in there one day, they were even treating people in the lobby, doing absolutely fantastic things, and some people had been watching them for some period of time, and that's when they come in. They put him in jail and phonied up a charge, and he had to plea bargain in order to get out because attorneys wanted $250,000 to defend him. So that ended E.F. Skilling Incorporated. But I didn't get involved in it because I'd given them all the stock. I was no longer owned the company. And so my kids were out of business, but they did have a photographic business, which they are still working in Colorado Springs, Colorado, here, a few miles down the road. In 1990, after all that hullabaloo, I was invited to go to New Zealand, and while I was there, I spent 5 weeks doing workshops and talks on electromedicine. And the reason I went over there is because they said they were way out on a limb, they knew nothing about this field, and they wanted to get involved in it. So I taught them how to build all the equipment. I gave them all the schematics I had, and today they are still building some of our original equipment over there. When I returned from New Zealand after 5 weeks, I was called to a company in the Midwest to do some consulting and engineering, which I did. And the first thing that we did is discover that we could get rid of cancer tumors with this type of equipment. In other words, gaseous tube technology, when used in the proper way with certain types of frequencies, will cause cancer tumors to disappear. And the first thing that I had built was a lady named Chris in San Diego, California, had been using a piece of Rife equipment that was owned by John Crane and a fellow named Al Flores. And Al Flores allowed her to use that for 5 treatments. And this is a pretty bad thing to happen, but she got a great deal of reaction from it, and she was feeling really great. And after 5 treatments, he told her if she wanted more treatments, he had to move in his apartment with her. Pretty lousy thing to do. Anyway, she called me. I don't know how she got in touch with me because I was back in Illinois at the time working for this company doing consulting. And she called and asked me if I could build her a piece of equipment. I said, well, exactly what do you want? She said, well, I would like to have something that would drive some argon tubes. So she told me about what she wanted to do and about how it should be built because she knew something about it. She was also a psychic and had been a world-renowned hands-on healer. And she knew quite a bit about what she knew she wanted. So she said, build me about 12 feet of argon tubing and power it with some voltage so that we can, and then modulate it with some frequencies that she gave me. And we did that. We built that unit and shipped it to San Diego area. And within 30 days, she was out riding her bicycle, and the tumors were starting to disappear. Over 85% of her body was covered with tumors. Today, she's one of my very good friends. I see her quite often, and she's still absolutely cancer-free. So there's some tremendous power in gas tube technology. Before we get too far along, I want you to meet my good friend and colleague, Bill Coombs. Bill Coombs is up in Utah, Ogden, Utah, and he builds all of my equipment. He maintains to our standards, and one of our policies has always been, if you don't like the equipment, you get your money back. If it doesn't work, you get your money back. And we maintain that, and I've maintained that from the very start of building pulse generators. So you want to say a couple of words about that?
Well, we talked about this earlier, and briefly, the way I met Ed was through a friend of mine that had knew Ed and the company he worked with in the back east. And he had this friend that was a member of the recon team. You all remember Desert Storm, the glorious war that all the veterans have come home sick with? Anyway, this friend, his name was Jerry, and a number of people of you in this room have talked to Jerry. But anyway, he was a member of the recon team that went in through Turkey, and you remember the pictures on the TV screen of the pretty bombs going down and pinpoint accuracy? He was there pointing the laser that guided those bombs in. I'm getting emotional on this one. Anyway, when they got through with their mission, they would not let them come into Germany because they had injected this team. I didn't think I was going to do this, but they had injected this team with cancers and anthrax viruses, and they knew it, and they wouldn't let them in. So they had to go, as I recall, backdoor through Turkey or something. But anyway, I met Jerry, and our other friend wanted something to help him because he was a very special guy. And that's how we got in contact with Ed, and he agreed to train me, and he knew when I came down if I had the integrity to maintain his standards. Anyway, Jerry had open, weeping melanoma sores. He would wear rags around his wrist to soak up the blood and the pus. He was given 2 to 3 months to live. The VA had written him off. Anyway, are you familiar with the little piezoelectric hand zappers? He would use that and it was helping. But we found one of the original plasma tube machines that Ed had made, strictly the gas tubes anyway. And we found that, and it was broken, and we contacted Ed, and we got that working. And in the meantime, I went down and trained Ed, and we started building the new equipment. But anyway, eventually these sores dried up. And Jerry and I have become very close and very good friends. He credits me with saving his life, but I was in the right place at the right time. I was an instrument. And I just lost my train of thought. But anyway.
Why don't you show them while you're here the basic machine which is now called the photon sound beam.
Okay. I said I
You
could
can
take
that off there.
I said I could take. I won't go that far. They told me Dean wouldn't let me have his mic.
Yeah. We don't have a mic. Well, he can talk in this one. I think you're close enough.
This is the basic machine that I do right here. They basically come with a straight probe and a curved probe. The curved probe is great for going around your neck.
I want to turn it on.
And keep talking till it changes to you. And your shoulder, and it works great for sore. I have a back problem originally, and I would lay on my bed, put this on my bare skin behind me, lay on it, and go over my front this way, treat my abdomen. And actually my first treatment with Ed was to, I had a problem with constipation. I won't beat around the bush. And Ed worked me over, and I tried for 3 days to eliminate, and I tried everything. I even gave myself ugly enema. I'd never had to do that before. But I went to Ed's house the next day. I had a backache, and I couldn't figure out why. He treated me for 20 minutes, and 10 minutes later, it was gone. But this is the configuration we use. We put argon in here because we've experimented with other noble gases, and the argon conducts the electricity better, and it does more power. It has more power.
There's also some subtle energy in the plasma of an argon tube, and we won't get, because that's a whole other talk. We might be able to do that sometime in the field of radionics and other subtle energy devices.
And about the time that I met Ed, he had incorporated the old sound probe back into the machine. He'd figure out a way to isolate it to use it. And that also comes with the machine. And one thing, I don't know if Ed realizes that, but ever since I met him, I heard about the sound probe. I tried to get him to pull it back out again, and finally he had a friend in Phoenix that was dying of cancer and it was in great pain, so he pulled it out again, and we made a smaller, more compact package with 2 RF probes on it, basically for pain. Is that what you want me to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the first spontaneous remissions that we ever had from the basic principle behind this was developed by George Lakhovsky. And most people don't know that Lakhovsky built an electron tube generator of this type, that particular generator was responsible for the first remission. And that was a man in Michigan, in Hastings, Michigan, who had leukemia. And the man is still in remission from using that first sound probe back in that era. We have another one here. Let's see. Besides Chris, there's those two. Now there's a lot of spontaneous remissions that we're not going to go into there, but I wanted to tell you about what happened recently, and it's a new addition to it. We found that the original sound probe was 5 megahertz. It was in a standalone box by itself. The second version, we moved the frequency up to 24 megahertz, and it even did things faster. Now, how we can determine that is the fact that somebody that might have an excruciating pain from a degenerated disc, and I happen to have a neighbor who had that problem. And I didn't know it because she never told me that she had this problem, and she knew I had, and they have a piece of every equipment I build. And she never said anything about it, but her husband was working his table saw. He did beautiful woodwork, and he almost cut his finger off. And he said, "Ed, what have you got for pain?" He said, "This thing is really bad," was throbbing and so forth. So I took this new one over that was operating at 50 megahertz, and immediately the pain left. And he said, "Well, I think I'll try this on Betty because she's had this degenerated disc problem for 20 years. And every few days, if she moved too much or walked too much, she would get pain. And she had been going to the chiropractor for 7 years, and she'd get some temporary relief." Well, he put the little probe on it like this, on her back, in the area where she said it hurt. Within about 20 minutes, she said the pain left. And an interesting thing happened. The first day, the pain stayed away for about 3 or 4 hours. The second treatment, the following day, it stayed away for 8 hours. The third day, it stayed away for 3 or 4 days. Today, when she uses it, stays away for 2 and 3 weeks. And recently, they told me it's the first time in 3 years she's been able to vacuum the house. Her husband, Bob, had been doing that. So when we decided to move the frequency up higher, we moved it up to 100 megahertz. Now when she uses it, it will take the pain away in 2 or 3 minutes. So the higher frequency makes it work faster. In addition to that, another thing that we discovered is that we know that the photon sound beam, the inert gas tubes, moves lymphatic fluid in the body. And one of the problems that come up is someone will get a clogged lymph duct perhaps under their arm. And it just so happened that a friend of mine came into the lab one day, and she had a lump under her arm, her right arm, as big as a ping pong ball. And she said, "I knew if I went to the doctor, he'd want to cut it out." So I handed her the probe like we do in this manner. She put it under her arm. In 15, and we stood there and shot the breeze. She happened to be a lady who started the first health food store in Evansville, Indiana. And she was well acquainted with alternative medicine. Anyway, within 15 minutes, she freaked out. She says, it's completely gone. And we've had many, many cases like this. Women who have had lumps in the breast, many, many times it's only clogged lymph, and we can move those and dissolve those in 10 or 15 minutes. So the equipment is extremely good for this type of work. I wanted to share something else with you now. I came back, now this particular device here called the photon sound beam, the energy developed in there is by high voltage. There's 30,000 volts generated to light these tubes. Another way you can do it, of course, is with this is using, now it's going to mess this up for a minute. We won't leave it on too long. But when we use radio frequency, it does it just as well, if not better. Now this is actually radiating out all the way out into the a number of feet. You probably can feel that. People who are sensitive can feel it. I'm not going to leave it on too long. It won't hurt you, but people are sensitive to it. So this is what we call new dimensions. It's a brand new machine. I have one, a finished one. This one I had to put together in a hurry because I've been working on a project for since June and July. For the last 2 months, I've been working 14 to 16 hours a day, 7 days a week on a very large project. And I thought I was going to be finished much sooner, but they finally come and picked it up last Wednesday, a week ago. And I only had a very short time to put this together. But I want to share some information that's happening with this machine that's in San Diego. It's in a clinic. First of all, I want to read you what this doctor says. She's compiled this. She's had the first machine she's had for about 6 months. This later machine, which I'm going to tell you a little more about, she received about 2 weeks ago. And she says, the following are the results on the beam tube for its effects or enhancement in assisting the cells to rebalance their polarity. The sound magi was documented. That's this one here. We call it sound magi because it's doing such magical things. She says, the sound magi was documented for its ability to reduce pain at various levels. I discovered both to be effective at all levels and within the special circumstance of each unique individual. The drawbacks are not to be found in the equipment, but in the duration of time that most individuals are willing to spend on themselves. Once the fear of their condition has ceased, or when significant improvement has been mistaken for restored wellness, I find discontinuity to be the most common factor in failure to achieve maximum results. And here's a really interesting case. Female, age 12, condition, mental disorder, schizophrenia. Symptoms, withdrawal from day-to-day activities, speech vague, unable to follow simple conversations, hallucinations, disconnected remarks, blank looks, and appears devoid of feelings. Research, the beam tube and sound magi supplement she also uses, on every patient that comes in the clinic, she uses noni. You're probably familiar with the product noni, the Tahitian fruit drink. So she used supplement noni juice, 2 ounces, 2 times a day. Time 20 to 30 minutes, 5 days a week for 2 months. Here's what happened. The child began with slight improvement, such as keeping her room clean without being told to do so. At the onset of the 3rd treatment, parents reported their child's behavior appeared to be more normal. Improved attention span. 10th treatment can follow simple conversation. Patients' extreme mental stress and acute attacks of paranoia have become a thing of the past. An adjustment of interrelated hormones and chemicals were somehow produced in the hypothalamus, which rebalanced and returned the menstrual cycle on its normal frequency. This child would benefit from more sessions. Pretty neat. There's pages of this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But here's another one. Female, age 54, condition 25 years of systemic lupus erythematosus, inflamed and damaged connective tissue in many parts of her body, joint and muscle pain, inflammation of the blood vessels and membranes surrounding the lungs and heart, chronic fatigue, persistent fever, chronic candida, long-term use of steroids with all the adverse side effects, including cirrhosis of the liver, unable to urinate, constant constipation, prognosis liver transplant. Research, 30 minutes, 5 times weekly, supplement noni 2 ounces 2 times daily. Treatments, 23. Current research, 2 to 3 times weekly. Pain in the liver, pancreas area decreased enough in the first treatment to allow one of the best night's rest and sleep in many years. Urination came easily during the day. Fourth treatment, patient has begun to perspire. Bowel movements become normal. Hardness in liver and pancreas area is less hard to the touch. Patient's pain in the liver, pancreas, and lower to middle back had completely disappeared. Came out of menopause. A battery of medical tests 2 months later showed a normal functioning liver. Pretty good. There's on and on and on, but I wanted to tell you about some more. There's, on the East Coast, I have another clinic that's been using the equipment for some period of time. They don't have this newest one, but they have this new 100 megahertz sound probe. And what has happened there, they had a 75-year-old woman with Parkinson's disease came in the first treatment. She had to walk with a cane because if she didn't, she would fall down. And of course, she had the shaking that most Parkinson's patients have. He had to lift her onto the table for putting the unit on her body. And I think I have some notes here, maybe I don't, of the time. Let me see if I do. I've got so much material that we don't have near enough time to go through all of this, but okay, the first treatment, she stopped shaking. The second treatment, she could walk without the cane. The third treatment, she got on the table without help. The fourth treatment, she's lost 20 pounds of fluid in her body. She's now walking, and she bought one of her own, he also sells these Magi's in this little box here so that you can take it home with you very easily and plug it in. She now has her own Magi, and she is, appears to be normal. Whether it's going to continue or not, we don't know. Let me see if we got... Oh, another interesting thing that's happened, when we move this unit up to 100 megahertz, it also began to move lymphatic fluid, also increased blood circulation very rapidly. And he just called my wife, I talked to my wife to see, I've got a whole mess of phone calls, and she said she called her on my through line because he was so anxious to tell her a new thing to tell me, and that he had an elderly woman come in and he had to draw some blood. Couldn't find the vein in her wrist, just couldn't find it. He put this on her wrist for 30 seconds, and when you do this, you'll see the pain, mine just popped up. The vein popped right up. So it does extremely rapid increase in blood circulation as well as moving lymphatic fluid. We have lots and lots of other information to pass on to you, and we're going to be doing a workshop. And during the workshop, the idea behind the workshop this year is going to be delving into exactly how to use this equipment in every aspect, and we'll spend a lot of time of the 3 hours doing that. How much time do we have left? 16 minutes. We could do a few questions. Just a minute.
I just wanted to add a postscript to my friend Jerry. He is the only member left of that recon team. He's the only member left alive of that recon team.
Tell her about some of the other patients that he was doing there.
Oh, and people flock to his house for treatments. He has a special, if there's anybody here that does foot massages, he uses the glass tubes to do a foot massage that's better than sex. I've had it. Well, it's almost as good, but that's the only way to describe it. And he is very candid about what's happened to him and what's going on. And I've heard stories, and I've got letters at home with people who have helped. The lady that's in charge, does anybody know what scleroderma is?
Yes. Scleroderma, yeah.
Okay, using that with essential oils has a synergistic effect, and it's causing these sores to heal. And this is coming out of a clinic in southern Florida. We're hearing that.
Okay.
I don't want to steal your show.
Oh, that's fine. If there's any questions, you better get the microphones. Now remember, I'm not a practitioner, I'm an engineer, and all of the information I get is from practitioners throughout the world. Incidentally, I have my equipment everywhere in the world. I've got New Zealand, Australia, we got in Sweden, and Amsterdam, and Italy, and this equipment just goes by like wildfire all over the world, and I'm getting the same successful reports that we're finding here everywhere with this type of equipment, this type of technology.
One more thing. Your workshop will be Monday morning.
My workshop will be Monday morning, he tells me, okay.
How many of us heard of mad cow disease? The mic's dead? Oh, I'm not talking close enough. We have a dear sweet lady over there in New Zealand who just ordered her third machine. She runs that machine probably 20 hours a day, and she says she's treated people with mad cow disease. That's what she tells me. Successfully. Pardon me? I don't, well, we're down here in the corner. We're running a show special with $400 off right now, and I don't think it's appropriate to do that here, okay? Come back and see me. I'll treat you fair.
Okay, questions?
Actually, I'm very loud. My question is, how is this machine similar and different from the violet ray machine?
Well, the violet ray machine, as a matter of fact, I still have one of the old violet ray machines that the Tesla coil is in the handle. The only problem with the violet ray machine, it derives its frequencies from starting at 60 hertz, and it doesn't have the other frequencies in it that can be used for various things. As an example, we use 728 in a lot of our equipment because when we were in New Zealand, we found out that it was absolute death to herpes. And a lot of elderly women who had shingles, you can take this little unit and put it on the rashes of the shingles, and as you stand there and watch it, you can see it disappear. It will take a cold sore off in about 10 minutes. We've had cases of genital herpes in one treatment.
Take one of the mics back there, and I'll have one up here so we can hear. We couldn't hear that last question in the back. What was it? That was the answer in answer to what question?
The question was, how is this machine similar to and different from the violet ray machine?
Well,
Okay,
I'm just saying the violet ray machine doesn't have any modulation. That's basically the same.
Yeah. Take that mic back a little ways.
The same principle. Absolutely.
Okay, if there's other questions, get to the mic.
My question is about the clinic. You have only one clinic in the East? If so, what is the name, or where is it? What's the name of it?
Oh, the clinic in the East? As a matter of fact, I have permission to give you his phone number, and he will be glad to tell you anything that he has there. Let's see, I've got it here someplace. I brought that especially. Yeah. Dr. Barry Edelman, naturopathic doctor. He's been using my equipment for many years, willing to share his success with the new equipment. His number is 413-298-0121. He is in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, P.O. Box 302.
Okay, question back here.
Yes, I'm asking a question about losing collagen. Have you had experience with collagen being rebuilt in the hip when it's lost in the hip?
No, I haven't. I haven't got any data on that. But I can tell you that hip problems, this Magi works extremely well for relief of pain in all types of hip problems and knee problems.
Okay, Ed, you've shown us 3 pieces of equipment.
Pardon?
You've shown us 3 different things.
Yes.
Right, okay. Which one is the most general piece of equipment? Is it the one that lasers the argon gas there?
Well, they all use argon gas. The photon sound beam, of course, we've got several hundred of those all over the world now, and this is brand new. I've given you some of the test results using this machine, and they're coming in constantly because they use this machine every day for every patient. So I don't have all the answers.
Do you have
to that.
instruction booklets, anything like that? Instruction booklets?
Yeah, we have a.
How to use each one?
We can't tell you how to treat people, but we tell you how to turn it on and how to use it, and this is what we'll also do in a workshop.
Okay, question here.
Marcella.
Ed, what will it do for water retention for in the feet and the legs?
Well, it will move it. It'll move water out.
Oh, it will.
It'll move fluid out very rapidly. As a matter of fact, I can tell you that people who do colonics find out if they put, as an example, these tubes along the colon area, that will get out 50% more fecal matter.
Oh, for heaven.
This will move any fluid in your body. As a matter of fact, men who are suffering from urination problems, you can take these tubes, put one on each testicle. Within 5 minutes, you'll drain that urine. Pardon? I can't hear you.
We've got a testimonial here.
We'll get.
Got
Okay, let her come up and. We got a testimonial right from here.
My name is Cherry Young. I live in Pueblo. I have bilateral breast cancer and lymphatic cancer. I bought one of the photon sound beams. It'll be 3 weeks ago tomorrow. And my tumors have shrunk from marble size and a little bigger to half pea size. In 2 weeks, it was like that. And I'm very happy about it.
Can I have just a second? We're gonna
Absolutely. Go ahead.
We've been we got a hold of Bill and started distributing the equipment here in Colorado, and we're going to be having this fall a special 2-day hands-on training where people can kind of experiment with each other up at Estes Park, because we have the people that have got these machines are calling back with absolutely miraculous stories. In fact, we've told Bill about some of them, and it's phenomenal. Some people have had cysts just almost instantly, just like he said, instantly the cysts are gone. Some people have said that their energy level was so phenomenal that they went all night without any sleep. They said, and we use this equipment over in Dominican Republic at the World Center for Anti-Aging Medicine. And what we found is when we had people that came in that were real overweight, one lady came in, she looked like she was going to split right out of her skin. And they did a lymphatic drainage massage on her. She got up and urinated every half hour all night long. And she lost 25 pounds in 3 days. And she had wounds on her body that would not heal, and they healed once her lymph system started dumping the toxins. And basically, you have to use the equipment, but once you get that lymph system open, the body will heal itself.
Yeah, that's right.
So
that's one of the most important things that you can do. This is why people who are ill and can't exercise have such a problem, because you build the toxins up in your body. And even if you could just move yourself this much, it would help. But when you're hurting, it's really hard to move. Any other questions?
Yes. One of the side effects is that having worked with it a little bit, I've noticed that one of the side effects is dumping all the toxins from the body into the lymphatic system. Sometimes people get extremely sick, and I've heard some stories of some people actually dying from it. It sounds like extremely great stuff, and I'm not opposed to it in the least. What I'm concerned about is what's your experience with that?
Well, we find that as fast as the toxins build up with these tubes, it'll move it out. This is why we can use something like the other types of devices that will kill bacteria and viruses. As a matter of fact, that's what this little Magi does, is kill bacteria and viruses. But because of the high frequency of this now, it also moves lymphatic fluid. It used to be that we had to have the tubes to move the lymph system because people would, become toxic, and they couldn't move it out fast enough. But these tubes move that lymph extremely rapidly.
So it's the tube, the argon gas tube, is versus just straight electronic frequencies that's improving results?
That's right.
Okay.
Well,
Over here, Ed.
okay.
Wouldn't it be very important to drink a lot of fluids during
Absolutely.
this time to keep this moving? I think that would be a
also,
real
with any equipment, you should be on a nutritional program. This is why, fruits, vegetables, and lots of water. Anytime that you use any type of equipment, this thing, you should be drinking lots of water. All you can take. There's nothing better than water. If there's no more, then we'll cut the time.
Question back here. Where's the mic? Back there someplace. Oh, okay.
Are there any cautionary things to observe if you are working, say, with the brain or the brain area?
No. As a matter of fact, I've had it on every part of my body, including internally. We make a orifice probe that we've also used. I've used that on myself, and we have a number of doctors doing that.
If somebody has shingles for about 4 years, they don't have sores or anything. But if they have it on the head and it affects the eye and this side of the brain.
Well, the longer that you've had the shingles, the harder it is and the longer it takes to get rid of it.
The question was about shingles, in case there's a question about that. Nobody ever got shot for quitting 2 minutes early.
Well, that's wonderful. Okay. We'll be doing, of course, the workshop, he said, on Monday morning.
Monday morning, he's scheduled.
We'll have a lot of fun. We'll do some things that we can't do now with the equipment, and which we do in workshops. And we'll spend all the time in having you use the equipment. If you've got some sore places on your body, you're going to find out that it's going to get rid of it extremely rapidly.
If I can say anything for knowing this guy for 20 years, if there's anybody whose word is any good, in my opinion, it's as good as gold when this guy says it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's do it now then, Al. All right.
He's got to unhook me.
Number of you people have asked Al Bielek, who's been a speaker for us in the past, and he will be again in the future, but we just got too many things going on, all the time. You've asked if he'll have a workshop, and we've got one scheduled for him, and I'm going to ask him to give a couple of minutes of what he'll cover.
Thanks, Dean. The workshop is scheduled for Monday at 1:30 p.m., and what I'm offering is some new material, shall we say, a brief rerun of the Philadelphia experiment and other projects which were concurrent at that time, and what that really meant, and why certain ones of these other projects resulted in my demise in 1947 out of the Navy. Also, I'm going to go into some of the newer material regarding the Montauk Boys, as they are sometimes called, and the Montauk Project. Who is really running it? It is not a government project. And what this means in terms of the entire shall we say, the entire planet at this time in terms of some of these secret groups and secret operations. I think you will all learn something, those of you who attend, and you will find a lot of very interesting new information. Thanks very much, Dane.
Okay. Okay, you want to see Al? Practically everybody here knows him anyway, so if you want to see him Monday afternoon, he'll offer 3 hours there. Be back in 7 minutes. Take care of whatever needs to be taken care of.